Hi there. Thanks so much for coming. What I want to say, and I say this quite unironically, is what I think we're witnessing in Scotland is a Maoist assault on the lives of our children through our education system. Now, before my son went to school 7 years ago in the Scottish system, I'd worked for 30 years all over the world in educational settings, including in Scotland. And I expected, like many parents, that my child would go to school, learn some nice things, and his life would expand with what was happening within that environment. And how wrong I was. What quickly transpired is an instinct that all was not well. In particular, in his reading and writing levels, I questioned the school that he didn't seem to be where he should have been in his reading and writing. And I was constantly told that he was on track. I don't know what this track was or where it was going. Was he going to be a drug dealer? I'm not sure. But it was not clear what this track was. So at a certain stage, I took the bull by the horns and I had him independently tested, and I found he was P2 level in P5. So he was 3 years behind what children should have been based around certain standards. Um, so that was one thing. Now, you'll all be aware of the ideological programming coming into our children's lives, and this is absolutely rife in Scottish education. We have the comprehensive sex education that Penny referred to, which is ideologically driven, is driven by queer theory. We have the critical race theory programming coming in, being embedded into our schools. We have inclusive education being embedded. We have eco schools. We have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, where schools become rights respecting schools. And I'm not even finished yet. Where is he going to actually learn math? The things that are obvious, probably to all of you, is that these are not politically neutral programs. Not only are they not politically neutral programs, but they are also not age appropriate. These programs treat our children like adults in small bodies, and we could see this in how the teacher training has developed over recent years, where teachers are no longer tethered to the idea of childhood. They're taught that they are there to make our children into activists. And this is very clear in how the school lessons are rolled out within Scottish schools. The other thing that I would like to point out is that they're just really awful and badly designed and boring programs. So just from an artistic level, they offend me. Um, There is no criticality of these programs. They receive massive amounts of funding from the Scottish government. I tried to approach this with my son's former school. Around this time, they made a policy in the school that you were no longer able to directly approach your child's teacher. Any problem you had to be directed to the head teacher. So I was handing my child over into the school environment where I had no knowledge of what his teacher even looked like for 30 hours a week. And when I had a problem, I had to email the head teacher, at which time I was pulled into an Orwellian level of bureaucracy, meetings, and obfuscation, at which time lots was said, lots of paper was generated, and nothing changed. At the same time, he got an activist teacher who had been ramped up on decolonizing the curriculum. My child happens to be the minority white boy in a predominantly Muslim school, and I started getting loads of calls saying that he had somehow done something racist. These things would vary from him doing an accent to looking at the teacher in a funny way. At the same time, he was targeted by a group of older boys who were older than him, Muslim boys, who made up a lie about him saying something about the Prophet. And they proceeded to get all their friends ramped up on it, chased him into the toilet where he was assaulted. But for his friends who were also Muslim, because he was well liked and in the school and never had any problems, his friends stood up for him. And they said he did not say that. Those boys made that up. And because of that, the school had to recant. On my son's school record, it says that the boys were play fighting. and that on the and yet on the same record of my sons, that by this activist teacher, there's a whole array of accounts of racist things he's done, uh, that were unknown to me until I did a subject access request. The final nail in the head was when he got physically, the school refused to deal with this. The council refused to deal with this because it wasn't alongside the ideological framework that they were embedding in the school. Um, I went to the quality improvement officer, and she said, I said, I want you just to teach my children regular stuff, right? Teach them to read, teach them math. And she informed me that the program of Scottish education was creating children into global citizens. So at the time, I came across Sue, and I started writing for Sue. And since then, I've met hundreds of parents who have similar stories to what I've experienced in my son's own school. Part of what they do is they isolate parents so they do not talk to other parents or organize with other parents. We have 12 groups, and we are organizing and making ourselves more knowledgeable and making change and trying to address the things in the schools. Adults need to wake up to their obligation to provide for children. This is a really scary situation, what's happening in Scotland. And if we don't address this, the very foundations of our society will crumble. And I don't know what the future will be like. Anyway, yay. So don't do it.